This video is my response to somebody who is a podcaster, and I don't want to identify him here because I was in such a lather after hearing something that he said in his last podcast, and I tried to comment on it. I did comment on it, and we had a little bit of back and forth going, and then I wrote this one response that was very detailed, sent it, and YouTube fucking deleted it. I don't know if I used some word that I wasn't supposed to use. I did use the phrase mass formation psychosis, so maybe that they keyed in on that, and the AI bot said destroy, 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 destroy. Bad phrase. So I decided I was going to just make a video response. And again, I'm not in the spirit of fair play or the spirit of, I don't know, something. I'm not going to make this, I'm not going to call this person out by name. But what this person said in his latest video really kind of riled me. He said that and I should also give a little bit of context here. This is not somebody who is, like a raging liberal at all, or a leftist, or, this is somebody who would consider himself, and I would consider him, as far as I know, I'm sure he's sincere about this, a faithful Catholic, who adheres to all of the teachings of all the traditional teachings of the Catholic faith. But around the end of his latest video missive, he said something to the effect that I'm not going to talk about the Great Reset because that's just stupid. The Great Reset is not that important. It's not that significant. People make too big a deal out of it. People get all frightened and hysterical about it, and it's really the people who are behind the Great Reset really aren't that powerful, and nothing bad is going to happen at their hands. And again, I'm not exaggerating. This is basically what he said, and I think if he hears this video, he'll acknowledge that I'm pretty much summarizing what he said there. Now, to me, this was an astonishingly glib statement to make, and I drew attention to the fact that over the past couple of years, there have been, at the hands of the people who are behind the Great Reset, we have seen, if these people aren't very significant or very powerful, they sure as hell could have fooled me over the last 2 years with this op that they've pulled, and all of the ramifications of it and the vast destructiveness of it. Businesses forced to close, people forced into poverty, people forced into isolation. The suicide rate spikes among young people. Working class people become poorer. Middle class people become poorer. Small business owners are forced to close. Meanwhile, all the billionaires who are pushing this op, they get richer. They line their pockets, and all of the mega corporations that are a part of their, that are in bed with them, they're not forced to close during this time. Everything that happens over the course of this op that has lasted for the last 2 years and is still going on, still causing huge, massive havoc and destruction and despair and death. And not to mention what came, the beginning part of the op itself was bad enough, but then what came at the tail end of it with the forced mandates, the forced injection mandates, And the who knows how many people, maybe thousands of people, who have been adversely affected by these forced injections, these mandated injections that they've tried to push. They've tried to make it so that if you don't get them, you lose your job, or if you don't get them, you don't get to go into anywhere. You don't get to participate in anything. Um, you can't go into stores. You can't go into movie theaters. You can't go into restaurants. You can't do this. You can't do that in certain places in the world. I'm not saying that's where it's been the way it's been everywhere across the world, but and of course, in our part of the world, there's been a major people that there's been a major pullback on this whole op. It's been put in abeyance, but in some places, particularly in the southern hemisphere, uh, the Anglo nations in the southern hemisphere, i.e., Australia and New Zealand, it's still, as far as I can tell, it's still going full guns nearly, and it's just massively destructive, and the kind of deaths that have resulted from these forced injections, the kinds of injuries, the things that the kind of lives that some people are living now because they took these injections, and it had this adverse effect on their bodies. Is this everybody? No, of course not. Is it a minority? Probably it's a minority, but still, the fact that this is happening at all, the fact that they were forced into doing this, anyway, I could go on and on, but I just get a little pissed off when I hear somebody say, "Oh, the Great Reset. Don't worry about the Great Reset. That's no big deal. It's just a bunch of paranoid freaks who are out there worrying about the Great Reset." I mean, I don't know how you could have lived the last 2 years on Earth, and wherever you live on Earth, and if, speaking to this person, if he's watching, if things were generally okay, or not so bad in your corner of the world, they weren't that bad. I mean, comparatively speaking, in my corner of the world either. I happen to live in a state in the United States of America where they repealed the lockdown pretty quickly. It was effective for a couple months, and then around May or June of 2000, everything pretty much started opening up again. But there were still things that remained. There were still elements of it that remained for a long time after that. There was a lot of public schools that just closed down, and other things, and so we weren't spared even in my state, which was fairly where things were fairly mild. But you, again, speaking to this person, he wanted to say, well, it wasn't really that big a deal because Sweden didn't even impose a lockdown. Sweden, okay, great, one nation out of how many European nations that exist? One nation wasn't supremely retarded. One nation didn't fall into total lockstep. Maybe because they were just meant to be a control group. I don't know, but for whatever reason. And maybe the place where you live, it was pretty mild too. But I mean, I just think this kind of denial of human suffering is just, glib is the nicest thing I can say about it. And I don't know if you were if you were motivated by, I'm not sure if you think that, I know that you are frustrated by conservatives in the West who you believe don't take Russia seriously enough. and think that we're just being lied to about Russia, and that we've swallowed Russian disinfo. Uh, and I get that seems to be a part of what animates you, what animates your whole way of looking at the world right now. Oh, also you say, well, in a lot of nations they crack down, they impose lockdowns because the people wanted it. Like that's somehow like tyranny is okay if people are, again, if they are subjected to fear porn enough, and they drink the Kool-Aid and they succumb to mass formation psychosis. Uh, this certainly is something that you could say happens in a lot of places where there's a popular dictatorship. It happened in fascist Italy. It happened in Nazi Germany. I mean, a lot of people in those nations were pretty cheerful about having their rights and freedoms taken away when the Reichstag burned. I mean, are you going to say to me, well, that shows that it's not really that bad. It's just the government giving the people what they want. I mean, I just don't follow that line on your part, or how that mitigates the supreme injustice of it all. I just don't get that. And finally, what I'll say about Russia. And I am not a Putin stooge. I don't I don't root for Russia to. I don't think it's a good thing that they invaded Ukraine. I think it's a bad thing that they invaded Ukraine. I think it's causing a lot of damage, a lot of destruction, and a lot of blood is on their hands. Now, of course, I come from a country that's invaded a whole bunch of other nations and caused a whole bunch of destruction and death. And there's a whole lot of blood on the hands of the people who were in charge of those operations as well. So, am I saying moral equivalency? I mean, I'm just saying there is let's just say the things that you complain about Russia doing in Ukraine, and it's not the first time that Russia has invaded other countries in its history. But you also say that we in the West are naive when we think to ourselves that, or when we say, "Oh well, Russia wouldn't launch a nuke," and you say you say, but based on what you have, based on your research and based on what you know about Russia and then the whole culture, the way that the formation of the culture right now and the formation of the government right now, that we would be naive to think that they wouldn't instigate a nuclear attack somewhere. You might be right about that, but here's the thing. I think it's good to call into mind. I mean, you say the whole Great Reset is just the people who are worked up over the Great Reset are just deluded because these people like Gates and Fauci and Schwab and the whole sick crew, they're not really the WEF types. Sounds like a wrestling league, I know. You say that they're not really that powerful. Well, they were powerful enough to impose enormous destruction upon the world, enormous destruction upon the human race, and they're continuing to do so because of this fucking this crazy, ridiculous, destructive op that they've been running. This so-called, well, I'll just call it this scamdemic that they've been pushing. So and you say we should fear Russia nuking other countries. What I would say to that is Russia has never nuked anyone over the entire course of having nuclear weapons when Cold War I was going on. They never nuked anybody, but the United States did. The only nation in the world to nuke another country is the United States, and Russia has not nuked other countries. But you're saying, oh, it would be perfectly within their nature to do it. Well, if it's in their nature to do it, why haven't they done it before? And if we should be really scared about that possibility, and I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but it just seems to me a little out of whack that you want people in the West to be really concerned about the possibility of Putin launching a nuclear strike somewhere when there's no precedent for that. But you think people are silly and stupid to get all worked up about the Great Reset when the people who have been in charge of the Great Reset have wreaked enormous, conspicuous havoc on the world for the last 2 years and counting. So it just seems to me that if this is just an attempt to try to be provocative or something, if you're just sort of expressing, if you're tired of people being naive about Russia, you might be right. I mean, I'm sure that you know Russia better than I do. I'm sure of that. So I will defer to you on that score. But that doesn't, and so maybe you associate people who are skeptics about about the what I would call Russophobia, or you can call it something else. You can call it a realistic appraisal of how Russia really is now, if you want. And you associate this sort of people with the kind of conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, who believe that the Great Reset is a danger. I mean, I think you just have to be careful not to be glib about a group that has wreaked enormous havoc and caused enormous suffering in nations across the world. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an either-or. You can acknowledge that you can properly acknowledge the evil of the Great Reset while still saying Putin is bad, and that we shouldn't be naive about Russia. You can say both of those things at the same time. And I would just, it's not up to me to tell you how to run your podcast, but that would be how I would address your what I believe to be the careless and glib and somewhat, and I would say also rather callous words. And again, these are the most charitable ways I can characterize them. And I'm going to characterize them in the most charitable way because I don't think you're a bad person at heart at all. But I think you've gotten a little carried away on this front. So those are my thoughts. I just had to put it into a video. And you can reply if you want. You can email me privately. You can do whatever. And everybody else who's watched this and wonders what the hell's going on, who I'm talking about, and I'm sorry. This is just the way I had to do it. This is the way it had to be done. So I'm not going to make this into a public feud. But I did feel compelled to address what you said, the person that I'm addressing here. Thank you for watching.